Hi everyone, welcome to the Dink School of Mysteries. My name is Bear, and today we're talking about Hugin and Munin. Hugin and Munin. For those of you who don't know, Hugin and Munin are Odin's two ravens. Now, there's a few fun things about this. So, we talked earlier about the four elements, right? And how each element has, not only does it represent a particular place on a spectrum of consciousness, of vibratory energy, so the things at the very bottom, earth, things that vibrate the slowest, and things up on top, fire, is the transformational light unification principle. Fire is at the top. So as you move up the four elements, the faster things vibrate. So we talked about how each particular section has its own types of symbols that exist within each element, right? So you have things, beasts, carnal things, snakes, wolves, bears, stags, these underworld gods with the hooves and the horns, all those things. They're all represented as things that crawl on the ground because they're lowest vibration. You have the next section up, which is the water. So you have things like fish and things such like water pitchers and fountains and those kinds of things that kind of exist there. And then you go up to air, things that vibrate so fast that they don't fall to the ground anymore. Then you have winged things. We're talking about things that represent gnosis, things that get you off the earth and out of the underworld. So you start having things like winged birds, so like the dove that lands on Jesus. You have Hugin and Munin, the ravens. You have the winged serpents. You have dragons, winged horses, things like that. And then, of course, you have things on the fire side, the next one up. You have a lot of things like halos and light rays and candles and torches and stars and all that kind of thing. Luminaries. So right off the bat, you see what part of consciousness Hugin and Munin are trying to communicate to. So you see that they're specifically talking about number 3, which is the air consciousness, which is just gnosis, which is just the understanding of things. You're no longer in the underworld, you get above the underworld. In the land of the living. You can see the whole world below you as a master player. And something I think is really fascinating also. So we also discussed the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. How you have to have both the masculine and both the feminine at the same time working together to create one thing, right? To create one unit. So, ravens are fascinating birds. They're absolutely fascinating birds. They're not only among one of the smartest animals in the world, they're extremely high on the Animal Intelligence Index. They have advanced problem-solving skills, they have a full-blown language, they work as teams. But what's really interesting is they're monogamous. Once they have their mate, they stick together. They don't leave their mate, they spend their whole lives together. And Hugin and Munin are like that. Hugin means thought, and Munin means memory. Thought and memory. So right off the bat, we see the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. The sacred masculine, thought, is the provenance of the sacred masculine. It's just thought represents kind of a linear system. This plus this plus this equals this. You're working through a problem. You're just like adding up the numbers. Memory is the province of the sacred feminine. And what we've kind of discovered recently in brain science is that memory is actually filtered through the midbrain. And the midbrain is part of the sacred feminine. It's the part where all the emotion comes from. So that's why, like, you're walking past a bakery and you see you walk past a bakery and you smell all that delicious carbohydrates and the butter and the herbs, and you suddenly have this flashback to your grandmother's house when you're a child and she's baking in summertime. Because what happens is that smell triggers an emotion, which triggers a memory. Right? So there's kind of a chain reaction there. The smell triggers an emotion, which triggers a memory. So, we're discovering now, even if you're keeping up with the science, that a lot of police departments and criminal investigative units are putting less and less stock on eyewitness testimony, because they're realizing that what people think they see, what people remember seeing, and what was actually happening isn't very reliable at all. There's been a lot of people who've been put away falsely because they thought they saw somebody, and the actual sequence of events didn't happen the way they thought it did. So right away you see the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, the mated pair for Hugin and Munin, the two ravens, and which is cool, is that the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, the thought and memory is the prerequisite required for wisdom. There was a famous Greek philosopher, and now for some reason I don't remember what his name was. I don't even remember. He was a famous one. Anyway, he said that and rightly so, he said there is no learning without remembering. There is no learning without remembering. You have to not only see the information and decode it, but you also have to remember it afterwards. If you have no memory, learning is moot. There is no point of even reading a book if you can't remember it. So we see this mated pair, and so Odin, he sends his ravens out. He sends thought and memory out into the world to collect information for him, and then report back to him the news. Right, the things that are happening out in the worlds, the 9 worlds. And so we see right away, that all the symbols are kind of lining up. You see that they represent both the air element. We see that the air element is consistent. Their symbols are consistent with the air element and the things that they represent, which are the things that represent gnosis. And we see that the behaviors of the symbol fall in line with these other things, which represents gnosis. That they go out, collect information, and bring it back. So the learner, the knower of things, who is Odin, can see what's going on and assimilate it properly. See what I'm saying? So all of that is the prerequisites for wisdom. You can't have wisdom without thought, and you can't have wisdom without memory. They're required first before you could even begin to consider yourself wise. It's just a really cool thing. And, as far as symbols go, they're not super complex in the way it is required to explain it. But they're so, like, Odin's wolves, for example, and for some reason I'm thinking I can't remember what they're called. Let's see here. Odin's wolves. For some reason I forgot their names. It's like Gary and Freki. That's what it was. Gary and Freki. they represent on the they represent the opposite thing. They are the things that live on the ground. They it's called the ravenous one and the greedy one. Ravenous and greed. They're the base. They represent the base consciousness. Odin's base consciousness. They're the ones that don't fly, that can't fly. They live on the ground. One is always laying on the ground at one point or another. So it's an interesting, when you understand the symbols and you understand what kind of goes behind each symbol, you'll find that a lot of these different I just lost it. You find pretty quickly that they are always very consistent. That the things that they represent are always very consistent on an elemental basis, on an archetypal basis, and on a basis when it comes to describing different areas of thought and emotion. So, it's that's really all there is to it. You know? It's cool stuff, huh? So, I know it's not a very long one today. I think I only got, let's see. Oh, only like 12 minutes. Good for me. All right, you guys. I love you, and have a great day.